But that takes us on to Andor episode 4.
Yes.
And let me just say, I am in love with this fucking show. I don't know what about it. I'm going to be honest. Book of Boba Fett, season 1, I haven't actually finished it yet because I was struggling to watch it. I wasn't enjoying it that much. I need to go back and binge it at some point, but I just didn't get through it. Andor, give me more. I'm loving it.
Okay.
I've made no secret on this channel that I'm of the opinion Rogue One is the best thing Star Wars has ever created. It is nailing the Rogue One vibes.
So, quick thing I'll touch on why I think you're enjoying this more than Book of Boba Fett. I enjoyed Book of Boba Fett, but I will say, like, it is the weakest Star Wars show we've had out of all of the newer stuff. And
I think it also had, correct me if I'm wrong, it had a lot of the thing I was saying about Rings of Power. It's just lots of scenes of just like a lot of silence.
So
I need conversation between characters.
My issue with Book of Boba Fett was I liked how they were building him up and we were getting these flashbacks of it, whatever. And the issue with Book of Boba Fett was like halfway through the second half of that season, we just ditched Boba Fett and it became Mandalorian.
Oh, did it?
Well, oh shit, yeah, spoiler.
No, like I said, I mean,
Mando shows up.
It's not a spoiler this late.
Mando shows
we'll
up.
Go back and watch it then.
And we essentially get season 2.5 for a couple of episodes.
Oh, okay.
We get like the crossover. And
so
it
I definitely need to watch Book of Boba Fett before Mando season 3.
I would go watch it. It just helps like merge a few things. But it's like it's this weird thing of then it loses its place as like Boba Fett's show. Whereas Andor is very much the rougher street level of Star Wars that we love and we know from Rogue One, and like that raw early Empire days and getting to
mid-Empire days at this point, height of the Empire.
Yeah. We're getting like that vibe constantly.
Yeah. Being back on Coruscant, bro. When I was watching it and Coruscant popped up, I was like, no fucking way. So the message I sent in Discord going, is this the first time we've been back on Coruscant since the prequels? I literally paused the episode to type that message. I was like, holy shit. I was so hype.
So I saw that and my initial thought was like, are we going to get slum level? Because
or are we going to see the rich being rich?
Or I was like, is this us going to the Galactic Council? Are we gonna be back there for the first time in ages? And then it's like, it's neither of those. We get two completely like kind of new aspects of Coruscant that we haven't really experienced, which is something that I loved from this episode. Is we actually got a more detailed and kind of like inside look at how the Empire was running things and how they managed like intel, and we go to the Bureau of Intelligence or whatever they call the building, and there's like inner workings of how the Empire was trying to manage the entire galaxy. I really enjoyed that kind of inside look on things and perspective from their side of things of how they look at intelligence that comes in and why they would go to certain planets.
Yeah.
And actually shows why later, like the films later down the line, we don't see those independent security things managing things. And this show kind of sets why that happens.
Because these guys kept fucking up. And that's what ended up spreading the Empire too thin and allowing the rebels to get their chance.
Yeah, the Empire's like, well, you're doing a shit job, we'll just do it in-house.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool what we got to see from that.
So, right now, this show, in my opinion, is giving me vibes of 3 things I've seen before.
Okay.
So what I've gone for is I've gone Red Dawn, James Bond, and Children of Men. And I'll explain why. So Red Dawn, for those who don't know, was originally a 1980s film. It has been redone, I want to say, in 2015. And the concept is, in the initial film, Russia invades America overnight and takes over the entire country. like a perfectly executed
Mm.
military takeover. In the dead of night, no one sees it coming, and instantly America is under Russian control. And Red Dawn follows these band of like people getting ready to leave high school, so like 17, 18 year
Mm-hmm.
olds, who form a freedom fighting group called the Wolverines in a tiny little town who fight back.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the kind of vibes I'm getting from um, where Cassian is now with the rebels, getting ready to execute their heist.
Yep.
Then James Bond, I think everyone can tell that this is more Luthen's story, with this whole kind of, he's definitely involved at a very high level with the Empire. He's brushing elbows with the important people. He's got them connections with the people working within the Galactic Senate and stuff that
Mm-hmm.
want the Empire to fall.
Mm-hmm.
And then Children of Men, this one's a bit more obscure. I don't know. This was a book, I believe, that people
I
might be
don't
more
know.
familiar with, but there was a film. And basically, the premise of the film is no one can have babies anymore.
Okay.
So, like the film starts with the death of the youngest person in the world being announced. He was like 19 and like 300 days or something. And because of this, he was like the biggest celebrity in the world
Right. Okay.
because no one had been born after him.
Right.
And he got like stabbed to death because of how famous he was. Um, and then the premise of the film is eventually they find a pregnant woman.
Right. Okay.
So after 19 years of no one being born, there's this one woman that's pregnant, and you've got the governments and that trying to keep it hush hush, and they're on the run to protect this woman to give birth, to work out how this is even possible because no one can give birth anymore. What's happened?
Right.
Um, and that's like the real dystopian feel I'm getting from all of these planets that hasn't been Coruscant. Because on
Mm-hmm.
Coruscant, you've got these people like living the high life, kind of maybe even like Hunger Games style in the capital. And then you've got everyone else back on like Ferrix and stuff, literally living in like slums.
Mm.
And I'm just really enjoying the way they've melded these kind of genres together of sci-fi and um, spy thriller as well as dystopian. And I don't think I've seen it done this well before.
No, there's. It's really given us a new, which is what I thought it would, which is a new angle from like the world of Star Wars. And it's like, yes, in Rogue One we saw some of where how like, and we know that essentially the rebels it came from with like within, and this is us essentially seeing that early days of how actually a lot of what kind of pushed and helped grow the Rebel Alliance was people in the high up places from within not liking it and using their position from within to slowly change things. And you see them like we're getting to see like that early stages of people being like, we need to push against this. And they're
Yeah,
starting to do things, and then it's obviously very easy to find people at the lower levels that want the Empire to fucking burn.
yeah.
Um, and I love the whole thing of how Luthien,
Luthen.
Luthen, like clearly is the one of the main guys in charge of this like little inner circle of high up people that obviously want a rebellion.
He is definitely that link between the foot soldiers
Mm-hmm.
and the people inside who have to be very careful.
And I like how he was with the girl on the Ferrix. The whole like,
X.
yeah, they're like, this is happening. You're like he knows how the situation was gonna go. Like he's telling Cassian, like she's gonna argue, I'll wear her down, she'll go to agree. And you see all that. And there's a little bit of Cassian thinks about, do I just yoink the ship and leave? Do I really want to be doing this? But obviously comes to terms and decides that he does. And then we get to see Luthien, like, as he's obviously on his way back, that like having to put on a character. So we've kind of seen what he really is, person wise, and now he's having to put on a character again to fit back in at Coruscant with his whole outfit change, putting on his jewelry, and you see him come out of there and he has to do like a bit of a dance to get himself into his persona.
Well, this is one of them things that I can't remember. There used to be a really good police show that, like, I think it was called Legends or something, that just that like went into this whole thing of like police officers who were going undercover for long periods of time, and like the stuff they would have to do to like switch in and out of their persona.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that he's at that point where it's getting more and more difficult.
Yes.
And he needs this to happen now, otherwise he's in danger of slipping up.
Yeah, you can see that like he obviously has his routine of changing outfits, but then he like really has to kind of force himself back into the character that he needs to be. And then we find out he's like this artifact artist.
Yeah,
seller.
kind of an art dealer vibe,
Yeah.
but obviously
Typical-
in a space world.
Typical rich man in a space world selling weird alien artifacts from races they probably yoinked.
Selling really old stuff stolen from other civilizations for profit.
Though, fun fact, I don't know if you'll have noticed, and I only found this out through, I think it was TikTok. There's a shot where there's like a suit of armor in the back that has like almost like a sun sort of like rays coming off the helmet of it. That is the exact same armor that Starkiller wears.
Oh, really?
Which is old Sith armor. And so like it's not just a Starkiller thing, but everyone was like, oh, is this them kind of hinting at the fact that Starkiller's canon? Or is it just them like
Star Wars canon's mucky?
Yeah, I know.
Although live action Starkiller TV show would slap.
They'd have to do it. They'd have to be careful though.
How good would it be? Just make it very clear, like in the beginning of each episode, this is not Star Wars canon, and then just let us have our fun.
Well, it's just more like you've got to really sell how powerful he is. But yeah, there was that was a little detail, and then they obviously go in the little bat room, and she, I forget her name, the Senate woman,
Mothmana,
something like that, who people obviously recognize from Rogue One. We see that like how he uses his shop kind of as a front to interact with these other Senate people that are in the riskier seats internally. And she even talks about like it feels like they're getting more and more like kind of security internally, and they're getting more and more on top of it. The Empire's getting more and more on top of like people internally.
The fascism is getting more fascist by the day.
Yeah, so it's getting even harder to kind of have these opposing opinions on things. And we even see with her husband.
Yeah. What I am going to say is I am already waiting for this show to get called Too Woke for taking a very socialist stance.
I mean...
Okay, let's be clear. Star Wars has always been so fucking socialist, it's unreal.
Yeah.
But this show's just actually leaning into that in a more obvious way because it's showing the day-to-day running of the Empire. I cannot wait for, like, people who are born in the 60s and 70s who saw Star Wars as a kid, but who are, like, big-time conservative, just being like, Star Wars is shit now. And I'm just like, bro, you misunderstood the point as a child and now you're angry.
Possibly, yeah. And then we got to see some of like their interaction with her husband, who he clearly is. What that relationship is, I don't know, because from that small interaction we got, we're like, these two do not seem suited together.
I think it was a case of they worked during the Republic, but he just kind of is willing to accept life however it is. So fascism took over, but hey, I'm still doing fine, so who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
He's very much one of the people who, no matter who's in charge, as long as he's okay, as long as he's okay, who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
And then people are sometimes just as big a problem as the actual oppressors because they're just sitting there going, "Hey, I'm fine. Who gives a fuck?"
Yeah, this is true.
But I'm very, very excited for the rest of this show.
I also like how we talked about it last week, I think, with the whole thing on the end of episode 3 when they leave the cube, and he was very interested in Cassian, and I said I wonder if it's the fact that like he actually just only wanted, and it seems he very much went there because he wanted Cassian. He didn't give a shit about the cube.
He wanted Cassian. If he could also get the cube, that'd be handy, but Cassian is the main priority.
So interesting to see that. Like, he knew a lot about Cassian. Even when Cassian tried to lie about being in the war, he's just like called him out on it straight away. So he's very well connected.
I think that's all we've got to say on Andor this week, but the next couple of weeks or however long of this is going to be very, very fun indeed, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing more of that. One, the inner workings of the Empire, seeing how like the Senate and the people internally, how it gets riskier and riskier for them. And then obviously we've got this heist that's going to go down, which is going to be
It's going to be so cool. I can already tell.
it's going to be good.